I am Cadell Anderson, 74 years old. Listen to my story.
Cadell Anderson, 74, a battle-hardened Vietnam veteran with 3 Purple Hearts, stands alone at Charlotte Airport, gripping a worn leather suitcase and a crumpled $50 bill, the weight of betrayal heavy on his shoulders. The air smells of jet fuel and tension as travelers hurry past, oblivious to the quiet storm brewing in this old Marine's mind. Only days ago, Cadell's wife, Era, the love of his life and his anchor through decades of struggle, had passed away, leaving a void that neither time nor memory could ever fill. But that void was soon filled with treachery, because Cadell's own son, Harry, and daughter-in-law Lisa, whom he once trusted, had revealed their true colors. With false smiles and feigned concern, they had maneuvered him into this humiliating scenario, dumped at an airport, his dignity stripped, his independence threatened, and his only financial lifeline reduced to a pitiful $50. Cadell recalls the subtle humiliations, the small digs at his age and his PTSD, the way they mocked his medications and laughed at his discomfort, as if cruelty were some form of entertainment. Every detail is etched into his memory like the scars on his body. And now, as he stands amid the chaos of arrivals and departures, he realizes this is no ordinary family dispute. It is a battle of strategy, patience, and precision, one that requires the same discipline that once kept him alive in the jungles of Southeast Asia. He reaches into his coat and touches a hidden notebook. The page is already filled with observations, times, conversations, and recorded moments of betrayal, each word a piece of evidence that will one day expose Harry and Lisa for the greedy manipulators they truly are. He watches a family of tourists laugh near the coffee stand, and his mind drifts to tactical reconnaissance. How he once analyzed enemy positions, waited for the perfect moment to strike, and executed operations with patience and lethal accuracy. This is no different, he tells himself. He is not weak. The world may see an elderly man, frail and vulnerable, but Cadell Anderson is a Marine, trained to endure, to observe, to plan, and to act with unwavering precision. And just like on the battlefield, he will use patience as his weapon. As he navigates past the bustling crowd, memories of Era flash vividly, her laughter echoing in the hallways of their once shared home, the smell of her cooking, the soft light of the sunset she adored. That home, now under threat by Harry and Lisa, is more than bricks and mortar. It is a repository of a lifetime of love, a symbol of everything Cadell has fought to protect, and he will not let it fall into the hands of those who would desecrate it. Every humiliation, every sneer, every whisper of greed fuels the fire inside him. His PTSD, once a source of vulnerability exploited by Harry and Lisa, now becomes a lens of clarity, sharpening his senses, heightening his awareness of every movement, every conversation, every betrayal. He whispers to himself, voice barely audible above the airport din. They think I'm weak. They're about to find out how wrong they are. With a steadying breath, he moves toward the taxi line, his mind already orchestrating the next steps. Return home, document every act, anticipate their moves, and, when the time is right, execute a plan that will expose their greed and reclaim his dignity. The airport, a symbol of his current displacement, becomes a metaphor for the larger battlefield he is entering, one where emotional resilience and tactical intelligence are just as vital as any combat skill he once wielded. The hum of jets overhead, the shuffle of hurried travelers, the announcements echoing through the terminal, all of it fades into the background as Cadell enters a state of quiet focus, each thought a calculated maneuver. The world may see an old man with a suitcase and $50, but Cadell sees a chessboard, and every pawn and knight, every deception and whisper will be countered. His first move has been forced by their betrayal, but the next moves, meticulously planned and executed, will fall squarely into place. And as the taxi door shuts and the car merges into traffic, he allows a faint, almost imperceptible smile to form, knowing the battle has only just begun, and the quiet war, waged by a Marine against the betrayal of his own blood, is about to escalate to levels no one, including Harry and Lisa, could have anticipated. The quiet war has begun, but the first confrontation will change everything. What happens when a Marine faces betrayal in his own home? After the crushing blow at the airport, Cadell Anderson is reluctantly ushered into the home he once shared as a sanctuary with his beloved Era, now a place tainted by manipulation and deceit, where his own son Harry and daughter-in-law Lisa wear masks of concern that barely conceal their calculated malice. The air is heavy with the scent of incense meant to feign warmth. But Cadell smells the subtle undertones of greed and entitlement lingering in every corner. From the moment he steps inside, he notices the microaggressions, the way Harry accidentally misplaces his medication, the barely concealed smirk on Lisa's face when he recounts a memory of Ira, and the way leftovers are pushed toward him as if he were no more than an afterthought. At night, while they sleep in luxury and he occupies a guest room once bright with memories of family, Cadell endures the quiet torment of small humiliations, subtle comments about his age, dismissals of his experiences, and the mocking laughter that pierces the walls like invisible daggers. Yet amidst the tension, he begins documenting everything, capturing the tiny betrayals, the whispered conversations behind closed doors, and the way Harry and Lisa's hands hover greedily over his property and finances. He notices their obsession with the house, how they linger in hallways he once painted, how their eyes dart toward cabinets with deeds, financial statements, and personal letters, as though every object he touches could become theirs if given enough opportunity. Each night, his PTSD flares, not as a weakness, but as a sensor alerting him to danger, reminding him that vigilance is a survival skill. He recalls Ira's gentle words about resilience, about standing firm even when the world turns against you, and channels her memory into a quiet strength. In these hours of tension, he begins to see patterns, small cracks in their overconfidence, Lisa's impatience when a conversation turns toward finances, Harry's forced cheerfulness masking nervousness, their underestimation of a man who has faced war, injury, and betrayal and survived. Meals become battlegrounds of subtle power, where Cadell watches silently as they consume luxuries he once shared with Ira, leaving him scraps that sting as much as the whispers of mockery about his mental acuity. But he is not defeated. He catalogs each slight, each manipulation, recording moments they believe are hidden from the world, building a dossier that will one day expose their intentions and safeguard what is rightfully his. The backstory of Ira's passing haunts him, but it also galvanizes him. He knows that she would never have allowed him to be stripped of his dignity or home, and he channels that memory into strategy, patience, and clarity. Every room, every conversation, every smile that masks cruelty is analyzed, filed, and stored in his mental map of the household, a battlefield where trust has been replaced by deception. He begins to predict their moves, noticing the patterns of greed, the way they whisper about transferring ownership or controlling his finances, and he prepares mentally for the inevitable confrontation. Cadell also notices the neighbors, some friendly, some suspicious, and the subtle lies Harry spreads about his mental state, hoping to discredit him before any legal or social backlash can arise. But Cadell is prepared. He quietly records conversations, takes mental notes of body language, and begins to plan the reclamation of his life, his home, and his dignity. The luxury they flaunt is now a reflection of their arrogance, and Cadell sees it as a weakness to be exploited. A house full of illusions masking greed, a family blinded by their own confidence that he will falter. And as he sits in the dim light of his room, sketching out possibilities, cataloging conversations, and recalling tactics that once kept him alive in combat, he understands that patience is now his greatest weapon and observation his shield. Every insult, every snide remark, every stolen glance is ammunition for the battle to come. And deep down he feels a slow burning satisfaction in knowing that the first moves of this quiet war have been observed, documented, and prepared for a counter-strike. Cadell whispers softly to himself, a vow and a warning. Let them enjoy their illusions for now. Every move they make will be their undoing, and I will be ready. The tension of this deceptive calm, the constant threat masked as care, builds like a storm on the horizon, and the audience feels the weight of a house that is no longer a home, but a battlefield where cunning and courage will decide the fate of legacy, love, and justice. The stage is set, the spies are in place, and the quiet war within the walls of his own home is about to escalate. But what will Cadell discover next that could change everything? Cadell's days in the house have become a tense dance of observation and quiet resistance, and as he sits in the living room watching Harry and Lisa interact with the neighbors, he notices the calculated web of lies being spun. Harry greets everyone with a cheerful facade, claiming that his father's mind is slipping, that Cadell is confused and forgetful, while Lisa subtly reinforces the narrative, arranging the furniture and household items in ways that suggest chaos and disarray. But Cadell sees through it all. He knows the difference between truth and manipulation, and he begins to document every word, every expression, every fabricated story intended to undermine his credibility. The tension reaches a new level when a local doctor visits to evaluate his mental state. Under the pretense of a routine checkup, requested by Harry and Lisa, Cadell remains calm and composed, answering questions with clarity and precision, exposing the superficiality of their claims. The medical evaluation ultimately proves his mental competency, shattering the lies carefully constructed by his own family. But the victory is only a small step in a much larger battle. Meanwhile, Harry attempts to subtly seize control of Cadell's mail, intercepting important letters and statements, and even goes as far as trying to manipulate banking information, believing that his father's age and PTSD make him vulnerable to these tactics. Cadell, however, is always one step ahead, recording the interactions, noting the patterns, and preparing evidence that will later become irrefutable proof of their deceit. He watches in silence as they flaunt his money, enjoying lavish meals and outings at his expense, while he is relegated to leftovers and discarded portions, their contempt masked beneath a veneer of familial care. Each act of greed, each lie whispered to neighbors, each attempt to tarnish his reputation is meticulously documented, feeding into a larger strategy that Cadell has been quietly constructing since his arrival. The emotional stakes are high. This is not just about property or money, but about legacy, respect, and the memory of his late wife, Ira, whose presence is felt in the empty corners of the home and in the photographs that line the walls, silent witnesses to the betrayal unfolding around them. In the quiet moments, Cadell reviews his recordings, organizes his notes, and begins to craft a methodical plan to counteract the manipulation, taking lessons from decades of military strategy, recognizing that patience, timing, and precision will be more powerful than confrontation fueled by emotion. He notices small cracks in their armor, Harry's irritation when conversations turn to finances, Lisa's subtle panic when documents are mentioned, their overconfidence in assuming he cannot see through their schemes. It is in these tiny inconsistencies that Cadell finds hope. Proof that even the most carefully constructed lies have weaknesses, and he starts identifying exactly how to exploit them in the future. At night he lies awake, listening to whispered conversations and footsteps moving through the hallways, realizing that even the house itself seems to echo with the tension of betrayal. He reflects on Ira's advice, on the resilience and cunning required to survive when those closest to you become adversaries, and he vows to honor her memory by reclaiming control without losing his moral compass. Cadell begins rehearsing potential confrontations, anticipating arguments, and imagining the expressions on Harry and Lisa's faces when they realize that their father has not been outmaneuvered, but has been observing, planning, and preparing to strike back with the precision of a trained Marine. The sense of suspense is relentless. Each day brings new challenges, each lie and manipulation a test of patience and observation, and Cadell's inner monologue grows sharper, more analytical, more focused. He records every instance of disrespect, every attempt to dominate, and every misstep, understanding that these seemingly minor details will form the backbone of his eventual legal and strategic counterattack. Meanwhile, the tension with neighbors escalates subtly. They begin to question Harry and Lisa's narrative, noticing inconsistencies in their story, and Cadell senses the tide slowly turning in his favor. Yet he does not act prematurely, knowing that timing is critical in this delicate game of deception and exposure. The house, once a place of comfort and love, has become a chessboard where every move must be calculated, every word measured, and every action analyzed. Cadell feels the weight of his legacy, the memory of a life built on service, integrity, and courage, and he channels that weight into an unwavering focus on the next steps, knowing that the moment to reclaim his home and dignity is approaching. And through it all, he maintains a quiet, simmering confidence, the kind that only comes from surviving battles both literal and emotional, from facing adversaries who underestimated him at every turn, and from knowing that the truth, when fully revealed, will shine brighter than any lie they have ever spun. The lies have been laid bare, the seeds of suspicion planted, but just how far will Harry and Lisa go before Cadell delivers his ultimate counterstrike? Cadell sits in the dimly lit study, documents spread across the desk, the weight of the house, and his pension pressing down like the heavy air of an impending storm. Every number, every legal clause is a reminder that the battle he is waging is not just about survival, but about preserving a lifetime of memories and sacrifices, and as he reviews the appraisals, he realizes the house is valued at $285,000 while his pension, earned through decades of service and 3 Purple Hearts, amounts to $1.3 million, resources that Harry and Lisa see only as plunder waiting to be claimed. The emotional gravity is profound. The house is more than wood and bricks. It is Era's laughter in the morning light, the smell of fresh coffee in the kitchen, the photographs lining the hall that tell stories of a love forged through decades. And now these sacred memories are being threatened by greed and manipulation. Public perception looms as a dangerous battlefield. If Cadell is declared incompetent, the legacy of a proud Marine, a Vietnam veteran who endured horrors on foreign soil, could be tarnished by lies spun by the very people he trusted most. The realization fuels a meticulous plan. For Cadell knows that a straightforward confrontation will not suffice. He must weave patience, cunning, and strategy into a shield that will protect not only his property but his honor. He begins mapping out the psychological dynamics of his adversaries. Harry's overconfidence, Lisa's subtle impatience, and the predictable arrogance that comes from believing that age and PTSD are vulnerabilities to exploit. Every detail is noted, every pattern analyzed, from the way they whisper in corners to the excessive care they take to appear respectable, to neighbors and local authorities. Meanwhile, the house itself becomes a silent witness to the tension, every creak in the floorboards and rustle in the hallways echoing with the sense of anticipation and unresolved conflict. Cadell reflects on Era's unwavering wisdom, drawing strength from her memory as he plans his moves like a general, preparing for battle. Each action must be deliberate, each observation catalogued, each opportunity seized at the perfect moment. As he reviews his recordings and written notes, he identifies key moments where Harry and Lisa's arrogance leaves them exposed, such as careless admissions about the deed, offhand remarks about the pension, and subtle attempts to manipulate neighbors' opinions. These observations become pieces of a puzzle, a roadmap to reclaiming control without losing composure or dignity. Emotional depth sharpens his resolve. He recalls Era's voice, her pride in his service, the way she loved this home and protected it as a sanctuary, and he understands that reclaiming this house is as much about honoring her memory as it is about justice. The tension escalates when Cadell realizes that even minor concessions, such as allowing Harry to handle minor bills or sort mail, could be used against him in court, and he begins implementing safeguards to ensure that every interaction is documented and verifiable, turning the house into a strategic fortress of evidence. As he prepares for the next stage, he mentally rehearses potential confrontations, imagining the lawyer's office as a theater where truth and strategy will collide, and he anticipates the expressions of shock and disbelief on Harry and Lisa's faces when they realize that the man they thought vulnerable has been orchestrating a meticulous counterattack from the shadows. In the quiet moments, Cadell finds solace in small routines: feeding the cat, tending to the garden, walking through rooms filled with memories, grounding himself in the life he built and the legacy he refuses to surrender. But the stakes are relentless. He knows that Harry and Lisa will continue testing boundaries, that each day could bring a new attempt to undermine him, that patience and resilience must be fortified with unyielding discipline and tactical foresight. His mind constantly races, calculating probabilities, anticipating deception, predicting missteps, and considering how each detail, whether a whispered conversation, a forged document, or a moment of overconfidence, can be leveraged in his favor. There is no room for error, no room for emotional impulse. This is a game of endurance, strategy, and intelligence, where every decision could tip the balance of power. As Cadell reviews his accumulated evidence, the secret recordings, notarized documents, correspondence, and meticulous logs, he recognizes that his greatest weapon is knowledge, knowing exactly how his adversaries will act when they will falter, and how to present the truth with irrefutable clarity. The tension is tangible. The anticipation electric. Neighbors begin noticing inconsistencies in Harry and Lisa's behavior. Subtle doubts arise in conversations, and the stage is being quietly set for the ultimate confrontation. Cadell's inner monologue reflects a blend of pride, strategy, and quiet fury. He understands that he must strike decisively when the moment is right, ensuring that justice, truth, and legacy prevail. Every thought circles around one unshakable certainty. Patience and preparation are his allies. Deception is his enemy. And the day to reclaim control draws nearer with each passing hour. The narrative crescendos toward the climactic moment. Yet Cadell restrains himself, savoring the power of observation, the satisfaction of strategy unfolding, and the promise that when the confrontation comes, it will not only restore his home and finances but expose the true character of those who underestimated him. The stakes are higher than ever. The players are exposed, but the final move has yet to be made, and Cadell is ready to strike when the time is perfect. Cadell's morning begins not with breakfast, but with the methodical unfolding of legal books, folders, and online research. Every page turned, every statute read, becomes ammunition in a war he never expected to fight, yet now embraces with the precision of a Marine planning an operation. The house and pension are no longer mere assets. They are the battleground on which cunning, knowledge, and patience must prevail. He delves into North Carolina's competency laws, property transfer statutes, and guardianship regulations, highlighting key passages, cross-referencing case law, and noting exceptions that might favor or undermine his position. Each annotation becomes a piece of armor against Harry and Lisa's schemes. Consulting with Jimmy Miller, the respected VFW commander and licensed notary, Cadell gains a vital ally, a steady hand who can authenticate documents, witness the legitimacy of deeds, and offer counsel rooted in both legality and integrity. Jimmy's experience with veterans' rights and property disputes provides Cadell with a tactical advantage he hadn't fully appreciated, the kind of leverage that turns a cornered man into a strategist. As they review the deeds, pension documents, and previously overlooked legal forms, the full scope of Harry and Lisa's overreach emerges: forged signatures, unauthorized attempts to redirect finances, and subtle manipulations that were meant to appear innocuous but are now glaring in their illegality. Cadell catalogs each violation meticulously, noting dates, times, and contexts, while Jimmy advises on the correct procedural steps to ensure the law is firmly on Cadell's side. The strategic mindset deepens. Cadell decides to allow Harry and Lisa to make the next move, to step further into the web of their own deception, knowing that each attempt to undermine him will create additional evidence for the ultimate confrontation. He creates a mental map of possible moves and counter-moves, imagining Harry's arrogance leading him to commit one critical error after another, and Lisa's impatience revealing patterns of exploitation that can be presented before a judge without a shadow of doubt. Every document copied, every photograph of forged papers, every recorded conversation is cataloged and backed up in multiple secure locations. The hidden lockbox, previously dormant, becomes the nucleus of Cadell's defense. Housing pension records, the original deed to the house, VA medical reports, and notarized power of attorney forms, all irrefutable proof that he remains in control of his life and assets. As he prepares, Cadell reflects on the meticulous planning era always admired in him, her voice echoing in his memory. Plan every move, Cadell, and never let emotion cloud your judgment. Her words become the compass guiding every decision. Every step is measured, precise, and calculated. Suspense grows as Cadell anticipates the inevitable confrontation. Harry and Lisa, blinded by greed and hubris, are marching directly into a meticulously prepared trap, unaware that their every misstep is being observed, recorded, and documented. The house transforms into a command center, where mundane objects, a desk, a filing cabinet, a hidden recorder, serve as tools of intelligence gathering, turning a familiar domestic space into a fortress of truth and strategy. Cadell's internal narrative shifts between calm, precision, and controlled indignation. Anger fuels the thoroughness of his work, but he tempers it with the discipline learned from years of service. Every decision is weighed, every scenario rehearsed mentally, and every contingency accounted for. What if they forge another document? What if they attempt to manipulate a neighbor or lawyer? What if subtle intimidation tactics are employed? Each what if is countered with a plan, a safeguard, and an archive of evidence. Time becomes both ally and adversary. The longer he waits, the more mistakes Harry and Lisa make. But patience must be balanced with strategic action to prevent them from gaining irreversible ground. The suspense is heightened when subtle observations hint at cracks in the adversary's facade. Harry's hurried explanations to neighbors, Lisa's anxious glances when confronted with minor legal questions, and the faint but telling signs of impatience that betray their confidence. Cadell records each moment, knowing that these small behavioral cues can carry enormous weight in a legal battle. He meticulously labels recordings with dates and times, ensuring that nothing can be dismissed as anecdotal or irrelevant. Emotional stakes intertwine with legal strategy. The house and pension are symbols of a life, built on sacrifice, service, and devotion to era. And losing them would not merely be financial, it would be an assault on legacy, honor, and dignity. Each action Cadell takes is reinforced by a mantra. Marines don't surrender. Marines observe, prepare, and strike with precision. This guiding principle imbues his legal research, his documentation, and his observation of Harry and Lisa with a sense of inevitability. The confrontation, when it comes, will be decisive, unassailable, and public. Even mundane tasks, organizing papers, backing up recordings, reviewing statutes, carry the tension of a man preparing for battle, knowing that one misstep could be catastrophic, yet confident that patience and preparation will prevail. By the end of the day, the framework is complete, evidence is cataloged, strategies are mapped, allies consulted, and contingencies planned. Harry and Lisa remain unaware of the depth of scrutiny under which they now operate, their arrogance blinding them to the meticulous counterforce, slowly enclosing around them. Cadell sits back, reviewing the work, a calm yet resolute warrior in civilian clothing, poised for the decisive moment, when all the threads of preparation converge into an unstoppable revelation of truth and justice. Harry and Lisa think they're in control, but every move they make is leading them straight into the trap. And Cadell is waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The morning sunlight spills through the kitchen window, glinting off the polished countertops and illuminating the tense scene about to unfold. Cadell sits quietly, sipping his coffee, each movement measured, deliberate, exuding a calmness that belies the storm he feels brewing inside. Across the table, Harry and Lisa act as if the kitchen is their battlefield, their voices sharp with expectation, trying to provoke a response, to force submission. Today, they push harder than before. They demand that Cadell sign guardianship papers or grant power of attorney, their tone a mixture of entitlement and thinly veiled threat. But Cadell has anticipated this moment for weeks, perhaps months, and every fiber of his being is focused on one thing: control without compromise. He listens, nods politely, never raising his voice, never betraying emotion that could be used against him, while secretly recording every word, every pause, every micro-expression, knowing that these recordings will serve as irrefutable evidence. In the legal battle to come, Harry tries to use emotional manipulation, mentioning Cadell's age, hinting at concern for his well-being, while Lisa deploys subtle guilt, reminding him of his obligations as a father, framing their aggression as care. But Cadell sees through every tactic. He recognizes that behind their mask of concern lies greed, entitlement, and disrespect for a life he spent defending values they now seek to exploit. He recalls moments from Vietnam, the anticipation before a firefight, the analysis of enemy movements, the patience required to strike at the precise moment, and applies the same discipline here. Each question, each demand is a threat, but also an opportunity to document, to learn, to prepare a counter-strategy. With the calm precision of a seasoned tactician, he refrains from reacting immediately, letting Harry and Lisa believe they hold the upper hand while he quietly confirms every legal fact, every loophole, and every resource at his disposal. He has scheduled a critical meeting with his lawyer on Thursday, and until that moment, his patience is his weapon. Every motion in the kitchen becomes part of a larger chessboard. Harry's hand reaching for a pen, Lisa glancing at the files on the counter, subtle signs that reveal more about their intentions than any words could. Cadell's mind catalogs it all, noting the urgency behind Harry's gestures, the frustration behind Lisa's smile, the false confidence they exude to hide their insecurities. He reflects on the significance of these documents, the guardianship papers, the power of attorney forms, the implied surrender of autonomy, and he knows that once signed, the consequences would ripple through his life and legacy. But he also knows he holds the upper hand, not through aggression, but through preparation, documentation, and knowledge of the law. The scene intensifies as Harry raises his voice slightly, leaning in as if intimidation could coerce compliance, while Lisa adds pressure through veiled threats and reminders of his dependence. Yet Cadell's internal monologue remains steady, recalling Era's wisdom, his military training, and the lessons of patience, resilience, and strategic thinking. He responds calmly, each word deliberate, each answer designed to buy time, to observe, to gather more proof. The tension is palpable, the air thick with anticipation. Yet Cadell's demeanor remains a study in controlled power. He mentally rehearses the forthcoming legal confrontation, envisioning how he will present the evidence, how he will expose every falsehood, every act of manipulation, and every attempt at deception. As the confrontation reaches its peak, Harry and Lisa's confidence wavers slightly, their impatience betraying cracks in their facade. Cadell notes these vulnerabilities, storing them for the precise moment when leverage will matter most. The kitchen, once a place of shared meals and family conversation, has transformed into a tactical arena where observation, documentation, and restraint are as vital as any weapon. And as Harry and Lisa finally leave, believing they have achieved some psychological victory, Cadell's mind is already 3 steps ahead, strategizing every move leading up to the meeting with his lawyer. He checks the recordings, verifies that every word is captured, every gesture noted, and prepares mentally for the next stage of confrontation. In these moments, the true power dynamic is revealed. The aggressors, fueled by entitlement, are blind to the quiet force they have provoked, unaware that patience, preparation, and knowledge of the law have transformed Cadell into an unassailable strategist. His resilience, honed by years of service and tempered by personal loss, stands in stark contrast to their impulsive greed. By the end of the morning, the kitchen returns to silence, the sun casting long shadows across the countertops, but the air remains charged with unresolved tension. Cadell moves with purpose, each step deliberate, each action reinforcing the strategy that will soon bring the hidden truths to light, ensuring that when the legal showdown arrives, there will be no question of who holds the upper hand. Harry and Lisa believe they've cornered him. But in the quiet of the kitchen, Cadell has already planned their undoing. Thursday will reveal who truly holds the power. After the tense kitchen confrontation, Cadell retreats to the sanctuary of his study, a room filled with memories, books, and carefully preserved mementos of a life lived with honor and courage. Today, this room will serve as the command center for the next phase of his strategy. With deliberate movements, he approaches the heavy oak lockbox tucked behind a false panel in the closet, a piece of furniture that has been in his family for decades. His hands tremble, not with fear, but with the weight of anticipation, as he inputs the combination only he knows. The lock clicks, revealing its treasures, neatly organized folders, original documents, and stacks of carefully maintained papers that hold the power to expose decades of manipulation and protect what is rightfully his. He carefully opens the folders, revealing the pension documents that ensure his financial independence, the original deed to his cherished house, VA medical reports confirming his competence, and verified legal power of attorney forms that cannot be contested. He even uncovers 47 minutes of secretly recorded abuse, each snippet a damning testament to the deceit and cruelty of Harry and Lisa. As he sifts through the papers, memories of Era flood his mind, the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her touch, the dreams they built together, all intertwined with the house he fought so hard to protect. He pauses, taking a deep breath, grounding himself in those memories, allowing the pain of loss to fuel his resolve rather than weaken it. With every document examined, the magnitude of his advantage becomes clear. The lockbox is not just a collection of papers. It is a fortress of truth, a repository of evidence that will tip the scales of justice irreversibly in his favor. Carefully, he copies every document, creating backups and redundancies, knowing that digital and physical copies will be essential when the confrontation escalates. He organizes the recordings, ensuring that every abusive word, every attempt at manipulation, and every fraudulent act is cataloged and time-stamped. The gravity of these revelations is not lost on him. He understands that the fight ahead is not just about property or money, but about honor, legacy, and vindication. He contacts Jimmy Miller, his trusted VFW commander and licensed notary, explaining the findings and coordinating legal support for the impending lawyer meeting. Together, they devise a meticulous strategy to present the evidence in a way that leaves no room for dispute, ensuring that Harry and Lisa's lies are dismantled piece by piece. Cadell reflects on his military training, remembering the patience required during reconnaissance, the discipline necessary for strategic planning, and the calm that comes from preparation. He realizes that the same principles apply here: careful observation, detailed record-keeping, and precise execution. As he reviews the recordings once more, he notices subtleties previously overlooked, the nervous twitches, The forced smiles, the inconsistencies in their stories, all now catalogued as critical pieces of evidence. He visualizes the upcoming lawyer meeting, anticipating every argument, predicting every objection, and planning how to counter each one with irrefutable proof. The intensity of the day builds, but Cadell's resolve remains unwavering. He is no longer a passive participant, but an active strategist, poised to reclaim control over his life and legacy. He also recognizes the psychological advantage this knowledge gives him, the patience, the planning, and the certainty of victory weigh heavily on him in a way that unnerves the unprepared. In quiet moments, he recalls Era's words about resilience, about standing tall even when betrayed, and he internalizes those lessons, knowing that the confrontation will test not only his legal acumen but his emotional fortitude. As the sun dips toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the study, Cadell finalizes his preparations. The lockbox is secured, copies of documents are safely stored, and a mental map of the upcoming legal battle is etched clearly in his mind. He takes one last moment to center himself, breathing deeply, visualizing the exposure of Harry and Lisa's schemes, and feeling the satisfaction that comes from knowing the truth will prevail. Every step is calculated, every detail accounted for, every emotional and strategic element aligned perfectly for the showdown. The quiet in the house is deceptive, masking the storm of planning and anticipation that brews within its walls. Cadell smiles faintly, a subtle sign of confidence, knowing that soon the world will see the truth that has long been hidden in shadows. The hidden lockbox, a symbol of both secrecy and power, now represents the unstoppable momentum of a man who refuses to surrender, who refuses to be cornered, and who is ready to fight with intellect, patience, and precision. With the lockbox opened and every secret exposed, Cadell's next move will leave Harry and Lisa reeling, but will Thursday's lawyer meeting be the decisive blow or just the beginning of a war they can't imagine? Cadell wakes before dawn, the stillness of the house, broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant call of morning birds. The day ahead is one of meticulous preparation, a ritual of strategy he has embraced with military precision. Every document from the lockbox is reviewed again, each recording re-listened to, not just for content but for nuance. The slight hesitation in Harry's voice, the micro-expressions that betray lies, the patterns of manipulation that have haunted him for months. He organizes the paperwork chronologically, annotating crucial points, highlighting inconsistencies, and mapping the timeline of deception with the precision of a seasoned strategist planning a campaign. Copies are made, digital backups encrypted, and secure physical duplicates hidden in separate locations to ensure redundancy. Beyond the legal preparation, Cadell knows that the battle is also psychological. He revisits Era's memories, her comforting words echoing in his mind as he sifts through photo albums, letters, and keepsakes, grounding himself emotionally while fueling his determination to protect the home they built together. Each memory strengthens him, reminding him that the fight is not for revenge but for justice, dignity, and legacy. To fortify his mental state, he revisits his military training, the countless hours of patience, reconnaissance, and tactical thinking drilled into him during Vietnam. The same principles that guided him on the battlefield now guide him in this domestic war: observation, patience, timing, and decisive action. Cadell also reflects on Harry and Lisa's predictable arrogance, the way they have underestimated him at every turn. This knowledge gives him an invisible edge. He understands that they believe him to be frail, that they assume he is overwhelmed, that they cannot fathom the calculated planning occurring in his mind. To exploit this, Cadell rehearses scenarios, imagining questions from the lawyer, objections from Harry, and counter-arguments that might be thrown at him. He runs through his responses, fine-tuning tone, body language, and phrasing, ensuring that when the confrontation occurs, every word will carry weight and authority. As the morning stretches into afternoon, Cadell sets up a system for documenting his day-to-day actions, noting interactions with Harry and Lisa, observations from the neighborhood, and subtle manipulations he witnesses. Even routine movements like watering the garden or checking mail are recorded with the same meticulous attention as a general surveying the terrain before a battle. The act of preparation becomes ritualistic, transforming anxiety into focus, fear into anticipation, and helplessness into empowerment. To bolster his legal strategy, he consults with Jimmy Miller over the phone, reviewing not just the documents but also potential contingencies. examining how Harry and Lisa might attempt last-minute maneuvers to regain control. Together, they craft a precise approach for presenting evidence to the lawyer, ensuring each piece of proof will be indisputable and clearly tied to Harry and Lisa's pattern of deception. Kettle also takes time to reflect on the psychological impact of the upcoming confrontation. He visualizes Harry and Lisa's reactions when confronted with irrefutable evidence, the shock, the denial, the scrambling to justify their actions. He knows that the emotional weight of exposure will be as powerful as any legal action. As evening falls, he revisits his personal habits. He exercises lightly, eats carefully, and meditates, maintaining the discipline needed to remain sharp and alert. The house, quiet and unassuming, conceals a mind operating at maximum capacity, plotting and preparing with the precision of a military operation. The day ends with Cadell sitting in his study, the glow of the desk lamp illuminating stacks of documents and recordings, a tangible representation of the strategy he has painstakingly built. He takes a final moment to center himself, breathing deeply, reaffirming his commitment to patience, preparation, and precision. The narrative of the past months, the humiliation, the manipulation, and the attempted theft, is transformed into a blueprint for victory. Each step he has taken strengthens his resolve, each piece of evidence fortifies his position, and each rehearsal of potential scenarios sharpens his ability to act decisively. Cadell smiles faintly, understanding the power of quiet patience and the inevitability of truth prevailing. The house is no longer just a home. It is a command center, a fortress, and a testament to resilience, prepared to witness the unraveling of deceit. As Kettle's preparations reach their peak, the calm before the storm hides a critical move that Harry and Lisa could never anticipate. Thursday's lawyer meeting is about to become the battlefield, where patience meets precision. Thursday morning arrives with a deceptive calm, the sunlight spilling across Cadell's living room where every document, recording, and piece of evidence lies perfectly arranged, like a general surveying a battlefield. The air is thick with anticipation. Each creak of the floorboards or distant hum of traffic feels magnified in the tense silence. Cadell dresses meticulously, his uniform of discipline invisible yet present in his posture, his calm but commanding presence radiating confidence that belies the turmoil. Harry and Lisa will soon feel on the way to the lawyer's office. Cadell recalls every slight, every manipulation, every whispered plan by Harry and Lisa, cataloged meticulously over months of patient observation. He knows their arrogance will be their undoing. They believe him frail, distracted, defeated, but the truth is that every step, every encounter, every subtle act of defiance has been part of an unbroken chain leading to this moment. As he enters the lawyer's office, the contrast is palpable. Harry struts in, overconfident, flashing a practiced charm, while Lisa follows, the mask of care barely concealing her impatience and fear of exposure. Cadell's eyes, sharp and alert, scan the room and immediately assess the psychological landscape. He knows the weak points, the moments when they are most vulnerable, the lies that will crumble first under scrutiny. The lawyer, professional and attentive, begins by reviewing documents. But Cadell doesn't wait for formalities. He presents evidence chronologically, narrating the story of manipulation, deceit, and attempted theft with unwavering clarity. Recordings play, documents are displayed, and inconsistencies in Harry's forged papers become undeniable, the lawyer's raised eyebrows marking silent confirmation of truth. Harry's confident demeanor falters as each lie is exposed, each attempt at gaslighting disarmed by indisputable proof, while Lisa's carefully cultivated calm begins to crack under the weight of evidence. Cadell's calm, deliberate narration contrasts sharply with their panic, a reminder that preparation and patience always outweigh impulsive arrogance. The lawyer asks pointed questions, allowing Cadell to demonstrate competence, memory, and control, and every answer he gives reinforces that he is not a victim but a strategist who has played the long game. As minutes stretch into an hour, the tide of power shifts, subtly at first, then unmistakably. Harry and Lisa, once domineering, are reduced to defensive postures, explanations that no longer hold, facades that crumble under scrutiny. Cadell doesn't gloat, doesn't rage. He maintains the precision of a seasoned officer, letting the weight of truth speak for itself, each pause, each gesture carefully measured to convey authority without aggression. Memories of Era flash across his mind. The quiet moments, her laughter, the warmth of a home built with love and trust, all fueling his resolve to protect what is rightfully his and honor the life they shared. When the lawyer finally summarizes, confirming Cadell's full competence and invalidating forged documents, Harry's face flushes with frustration and shame. Lisa bites her lip, trying to maintain composure, but the cracks are irreparable. Cadell remains composed, a figure of victory achieved not through confrontation, but through patience, strategy, and unwavering diligence. He leaves the office with a quiet satisfaction. The weight of months lifted, the home secured, and the legacy preserved. Outside, the sun shines, mundane yet triumphant, the world unaware of the silent war waged and won within the walls of what once felt like a battlefield. Cattle returns home, greeted by the familiar creak of the front door, the smell of the garden, and the memories of Ira, now untarnished by deceit or manipulation. The house is whole, the pension secure, the trust restored, not just legally but emotionally, spiritually, and morally. Harry and Lisa, stripped of power and exposed, retreat into their own chaos. And Cadell, fortified by preparation, patience, and discipline, knows that justice, once carefully orchestrated, is unstoppable. The story, while concluded in this chapter, leaves an enduring testament. Resilience, strategy, and unwavering commitment to truth can triumph over even the closest betrayals. The quiet satisfaction in Cadell's eyes is not revenge. It is victory earned through patience, intellect, and the meticulous application of experience and wisdom, a reminder that strength is often silent, but its consequences are resounding. The house is safe, the deceit exposed, and the battle won. But in the quiet aftermath, Cadell knows that vigilance, patience, and strategy are eternal allies, because those who underestimate a Marine always learn the hard way.